Heyo, it's Koga. I haven't recorded videos in a long time, but I have something I do want to talk about um, today, and so I think it's just time. I've been thinking about this stuff for a while now, and I would like to know what the community thinks about it, honestly. So I think one runner faction is lagging behind a bit, and I think that's a problem for the health of the game overall. So I've been playing Arisana n- almost non-stop last season, and part of the reason why I did it was that Criminal was actually just kind of bad, in my view. Like Criminal was just not good enough. And the reason why I played Arisana this much is that I think Arisana fits the criminal style in a way. You want to put a lot of pressure, you want to get value off of your runs. You can run centrals, force resis with the Q bounds and all that stuff, right? To the point where I even I even slotted diversion of funds in those decks, and I think they actually fit Ari pretty well. And I mean, I did find my I think share of success with it. I did convince a few other people that it was a good way of building it. Didn't necessarily fit every meta, and nobody's doing it right now. Though you have some cards you definitely want to spend influence on now that are kind of busted. So it's understandable. Um, so okay, why do I think Criminal is trash? Because okay, look, you could just ask Koga, what the hell are you saying? What do you mean Criminal is just in shambles? White Blade just won NAMPC Boston with Zahya. Um, Sable had like one of the best runner win rates in American Continentals. Sable was like doing amazing, and you even brought Steve yourself to Continentals. Like, what's up with that? Um, so yes, I all this stuff happened. I agree. I did play Steve at Continentals, but that I think is not indicative of the health of the faction overall. What do I mean by that? Well, Criminal has a fundamental issue, which is inconsistency. I think inconsistency has plagued the faction for the longest time. What do I mean by that? So, Criminal is filled with strong cards that you have to play at the right time to get maximum value out of them, right? Think of old cards. Think of Account Siphon. Think of even, Emergency Shutdown, that type of stuff. You can think of Bones. Um, I think that fits the idea pretty well. So you have these strong slots, right? But then you don't necessarily have the right amount of draw, or let's say quality of card draw. It's not easy to find the cards at the right time and then use them to their full effect, basically. So even if you do start with like Boomerang, Diversion of Funds, you have to factor in the cost of the ice you're running into. You might not get um, the full Diversion of Funds effect. Then it's also matchup dependent. If you play against Jinteki, might be running into Anansi. You don't necessarily have a good hand. You can throw away to Anansi damage. All that stuff. That's all an issue. Or maybe you're playing against assets and then you just can't diversion of funds because then they will rest their assets before you make the successful run and you've wasted your run event, your really powerful card, basically. So yeah, that's a bit of a bit of an issue. That's a bit of a structural issue, I would say. Now, Criminal in the past has always had this to some extent. They always had suboptimal draw and also suboptimal breakers. This is kind of weird, right? Like Criminal has good cards that require you to interact, but they also have the worst breakers, basically. Like the worst ways of getting through ice to get their value. It's not good. Like it's really not good. Um, so that's another problem there. And like this forced interaction to get value is one of the main reasons why Criminal is inconsistent. There are matchups where you are able to play your cards easily without worrying about stuff too much. But then there are matchups where you can't really play your cards. So like if you make a comparison with like Anarch, right? It's like you're always able to play your moshing, steel skin, strike fun combo or any combination of the cards and get like something out of it, right? Without risking anything, honestly. While with Criminal, maybe you have your bravado, sure, I guess you have your diversion of funds, but you need to have like there needs to be a specific situation for you to get the value you need to get out of it. Even if you think of, oh yeah, you just play boomerang, play bravado, right? You can do that, but then you you didn't really get the money out of it. You spent some money to make just a tiny bit of money. That's not really helping you get more value in future turns, basically. While if you just play your strike fund, it's not a great click, but at least you have your 3 credits you can use to do whatever you need to do. Like if you have to get 3 credits to play, I don't know, an Earthrise Hotel, sure, at least you got the Earthrise Hotel down. With Criminal, it's like, can I really play my Bravado if I'm playing against NBN? What if I hit a ping? What if I hit a Mesni Chessbow? If it's Jinteki, maybe I run into an Anansi. If it's HB, I risk getting a drafter in my way. There's tons of issues whenever you have to play these cards. And you have to risk something every time. You have to kind of get lucky in many situations if you didn't really get like great cards in your opening hand. And to be honest, this is part of the reason why I ended up playing Steve with Zer0, Strike Fund, and Steelskin. It's like, okay, I will play redundant copies of cards. I will just get my Zer0 down, and whenever I have cards in hand I can't really play comfortably, I'm just gonna click Zer0. I'm gonna throw one away, whatever it is. If I can't play it, doesn't matter. I'll turn it into a build script, basically, and just keep playing whatever I can play whenever I can play it, basically. Also makes me a bit more resistant to damage, if I happen to face check an Anansi, if I have, steel skins and strike funds, fine, I get something back at least. So yeah, that was kind of my idea. But the rest of the faction has these consistency problems, and they are lacking core tools for deck building. So decks I mentioned earlier, Zahya, White Blades Zahya, and like the classic Sable Carnage kind of build, they spend influence on extremely specific cards that give you a chance of playing the game. So Zahya spends influence on Poimu and Twinning. That gives Criminal some drip and some reliable multi-access. And like the multi-access you gain from Twinning also turns into more drip because you're Zahya. While on the Sable side, you have a little less reliable multi-access, but because you have like maybe only one copy of Twinning, maybe one copy of Puimu, but then you're spending more influence on draw fundamentally, so more Nukas and all that stuff. So yeah, like these are highlights of what Criminal is lacking. You're lacking some econ, really. Yes, you are lacking some econ. You're lacking reliable multi-access. You're lacking draw. And even then, you're still playing a faction that doesn't have amazing breakers. Honestly, I think Omakua is one of the good cards you have, which is not in an amazing spot right now. Um, but then you're still lacking like some power cards, I would say. Like you have Hermes now, which means you're also not playing Penny Shaver, which means your econ is worse. So, you know, playing criminal is complicated. You have some good cards. You have your bones, you have your bankroll, which means playing into assets should be okay. You have even you have your inside jobs, you have your diversion funds. So like playing into rush sometimes is okay. But overall, like basically games are good when you draw your cards and you draw the right ones in the right matchup. So historically, Criminal has won one Worlds. It was 10 years ago. That's a long ass time. It was Andromeda, by the way, which meant you had an easier time starting the game with what you needed. And then Criminal won 5 Continentals. Uh, the first one of these was Andromeda again, and it was a deck that is filled with so many Eternal points. It's actually unplayable in Eternal now. So make of that what you will. Um, and then a bunch of 419s, and I think even a Leela. All those decks were on Rozeki Turning Wheel. One of them had Security Nexus as a console. The rest was just legit, just good stuff. Get some drip, get some multi-access you can charge easily, not like Wake, and then burst and just wreck stuff. So yeah, like that that's what that's the type of crim that survived and did kind of well. But nowadays you don't have Rezeki, so you don't have Pat Tap, you don't have Tapworm anymore, so you don't have Drip unless you play Penny Shaver, but that requires you to run, to interact, so the same interaction issue I mentioned earlier, and you don't have great multi-access. You have Wake, which requires you to make successful runs on HQ specifically, which means if you play into like double ice on HQ early, playing the game is really hard. So you have to dedicate influence to some econ, to draw, and to multi-access. This is what you need. Um, Otherwise, you will have problems. And again, I'll say it again, your breaking tools still aren't that good, especially compared to other factions. Now, one thing I really need to talk about is identity. So, what Criminal has been is just run based, fundamentally. You have to run to get your value. The issue there is that, first of all, they're not really the only faction that does it. Or rather, you find the same style in other factions too. So you think of Hoshiko, you do want to run a lot. You could think of like Freedom as well. Freedom really does want to do that a lot. And you can think of Arisana. Like both are great examples of this sort of, almost criminal style in other factions. But the thing is, those factions can deck build differently. You can always find ways of building your decks so that you don't require interaction to work. Think of Anarchs. What's the baseline? Like, what's the first set of cards you include in Anarch? It's like Moshing, Steelskin, Strike Fund, I think. I think you have to make a really, really good case to not play these cards in any Anarch deck. So, if you're playing like a completely different engine, maybe you're playing Sebastião and you need slots for a bunch of other stuff, I think you still have to justify yourself for not having Moshing, Steelskin, Strike Fund, and probably even the price. These cards pretty much go into every Anarch deck. And the thing is, they all make your deck extremely smooth. Playing the deck becomes incredibly easy at that point because you have reliable ways of getting money, of getting cards when you need them without interaction. Shaper is also going in that direction thanks to Coalescence. Like Strike Fund and Coalescence are very, very similar in my mind, in the sense that they provide a little bit of value. That's not really too much, uh, but they also allow you to use them to pay costs. So, Strike Fund, I wasn't impressed when I first saw it, and I was like, yeah, okay, maybe people will play it a little bit, but then cut it, because this is like a blank card that gives you 2 credits. Not great, right? Feels like a weak slot. But then you look at it, you look like at the rest of the pool, and you're like, okay, well, but I kind of want to play Moshing, like Moshing is good, but Patchwork is also good, and then Zer0 is also kind of good, and Bankar is also kind of good. And the thing is, suddenly your card isn't blank. It's like suddenly your card is paying for something else. So it's more than 2 credits in that scenario, right? Coalescence is the same, right? You get your 2 credits off of it, but then you also have spec work, you have synergies like Lilypad and environmental testing, you have Azops, you have Simulchip, right? There's a lot of stuff that works with it. Again, basically all of this stuff is also uninteractive, right? Criminal, everything they have, they have some successful run triggers that can stack, yes, but these triggers require you to run. They require you to make a successful run. So it's true that you might be able to get an access on top of the value you're looking for. But the thing is, that works if you have the means of getting in first. If you have to set up to then start playing the game and start getting accesses as criminal, it's hard. Like, it's not hard every game, but some games it's incredibly hard. Like this was so clear when Tributary was in the pool of playable cards. Like there is a reason why when Tributary got banned, people jokingly said, "Oh, we are banning Tributary so that we unban Criminal." You know, that's not good. I don't think that's good for the health of the game itself. I think what Criminal is lacking compared to these other factions is some sort of value engine that isn't tied to running, because otherwise they will always have these issues. And the thing is, you can't even say, oh, maybe we should make these cards a bit more pushed because they require interaction. Because then what happens is that if you do balance it out that way, then there will be some games where you just draw what you need, or maybe you're in the right matchup, and there's legit zero ways for the corp to just get a win against it. It's like we don't want to see the equivalent of like PD on the runner side, where if they draw well, there is just zero chance for you to win on the from the other player's perspective. That's just not good for the game. So, with all that being said, I hope Dawn can bring us many cool cards and hopefully kind of fix these issues that I think I see. And I think more and more people are starting to see when looking at criminal in general. But also, uh, I don't want to just highlight issues I see without trying to find solutions. So, the Steve deck I played in Continentals, I think shows a decent solution on how to fix criminal gameplay, let's say, right now. I think that is a shell that kind of works because you do get most of the stuff you're missing at the moment. And it is a way of playing that kind of works. But also, I've started working on a custom criminal set myself some time ago. Um, and I've been revisiting some old school criminal themes that we haven't seen in quite some time and that were, I think, abandoned a little bit. Sometimes because they were considered a little bit toxic in the way they were presented, and others because they just weren't playable almost. So right now I have these three themes lined up. One of them I call Relentless, which is basically a reimagining of Denial in a way that should be a bit more dynamic and interesting, I think. The second one I call Corporate. That is the old Jackout theme. Now, this is the one I'm having the most trouble with, actually, because I think maybe the theme itself is a little bit too restricted. There's not enough room to make many cards. I'll see what I can do in the future. And the last one I call the Great Flood. It is basically the old force the corp to draw theme that was what Fisk was doing back in the days. And honestly, I think I have a few ideas on how to make that reasonable, balanced, maybe even a little bit too good. And so I'm excited to show you all what I've been working on. I like deck building a lot, but I don't really think of new cards or custom designs a lot. These designs are very tame, I think. Like I'm not making sicko cards that are just, you know, 5 lines of text and just do wacky stuff. I tried making stuff that is reasonably simple and that I think there are some callbacks to old criminal cards. And there are also like I try to make them balanced from the get-go without having to test them because I'm not NSG. I don't have playtesters. I hope I can show these cards at EMEA Bergamo soon. So if I manage to get it ready in time, you'll see it there. If not, it's gonna be ready when it's ready. And I'm just excited to show you all. That's it. So again, thank you and see you soon, I hope.